Hi, it's Katrina! Medieval porpoise burial. Off the coast of Normandy lies Guernsey, home to a monastic retreat and the cause of many wars in medieval times. Archaeologists were excavating the site when they came across a grave. Quite to everyone's surprise, it was the remains of a porpoise. Why would the monks here have given the porpoise such a burial? It had all the indications of belonging to a human. At first, nothing significant was recovered from the dig site in the southwestern portion of the island. Then, on the 11th day of excavations, the crew encountered the grave and its peculiar contents. Philip de Jersey, the state archaeologist for the Guernsey Museum and Galleries in the UK, was among a field crew of scientists who unearthed the grave. In 35 years of digging, it's one of the strangest and most bizarre things I've ever come across, de Jersey said in a video he posted online about the discovery, which features footage of the centuries-old dolphin skull and what appears to be shoulder bones. National Geographic reported on researchers' primary theories behind the unusual grave, the first of which speculates that the burial was ritualistic in nature, or that it at least had religious significance. This is plausible since it is located near a 14th century hermitage. The way that the porpoise was buried does seem to have been done with care, and it may have been a religious icon, similar to other fish imagery at other Christian sites. The ocean and its creatures weren't well understood in the 14th century and were quite the mystery. The other, less romantic and beautiful theory is that the monks caught the porpoise and buried it with plans to eat it later, or after eating certain parts of it, which also makes sense since some people consider dolphins a culinary delicacy during the medieval era. The plan to consume the porpoise later on would explain why its remains were buried rather than simply discarded into the sea. Either way, the bizarre burial is one of a kind, and the monks went to a lot of effort to take care of the remains of the porpoise. Gare de l'Homme. According to archaeological evidence, our ancestors were present on the Mediterranean islands of Malta roughly 2,000 years before the Great Pyramids and Stonehenge were built. I love Malta. As soon as all this craziness is over, it is definitely at the top of my travel list. It appears as though humans first set foot on the Maltese archipelago around 5,200 BC, over 7,000 years ago. Signs of early humans' presence dating back at least this far were found in Gare de l'Homme, or the Cave of Darkness. Malta and Sicily were connected during the last ice age, which ended around 12,000 years ago. Around that time, researchers believe that the melting of polar ice masses caused sea levels to rise, resulting in the disappearance of a land bridge between Sicily and the Maltese archipelago, as well as the carving out of caves and caverns, including Gare de l'Homme. The 476-foot cave contains animal remains dating as far back as 130,000 years. Many of the creatures are of miniature varieties, including pygmy elephants that reached about 3 feet tall at the shoulder and dwarf hippopotamuses, as well as red deer, small brown bears, foxes, and wolves. The animals' unusually small sizes probably resulted from their lack of predators, as well as a phenomenon called island dwarfism, which happens when creatures evolve to have a reduced size while living in a small environment, offering numerous advantages when it comes to survival, including lower nutritional intake requirements. Another of Gare de l'Homme's mysteries lies within the 1917 discovery of 2 humanoid teeth, which appeared to belong to either a Neolithic man or our ancient cousin, the Neanderthal. Carbon dating traced the teeth back to sometime during or after the Neolithic period, but some Maltese experts argue that the results were compromised in some way, leaving the mystery open for now. Olmec colossal heads. 17 stone head sculptures thought to represent Olmec rulers have been found along the Gulf Coast of Mexico and dating back between 1200 and 400 BC. Discovered in the towns of La Venta and San Lorenzo, the sculptures were each carved from a single block of granite, and they were transported 62 or more miles to their current locations. The largest among them measure nearly 10 feet high and 14.8 feet in circumference, and weigh around 16,000 pounds. The Olmecs are considered to be the first great civilization of Mesoamerica from 1200 to 400 BC. While there were societies before and after them, of course, the Olmecs were great traders and artists that influenced the later societies of the Maya and Aztec. Researchers believe that the Olmec colossal heads depict rulers from the ancient civilization, but there are skeptics who argue that the stone sculptures might represent evidence of early contact between Mesoamerican and African societies. This is a bold assertion, considering that its only basis is the belief that the sculptures seem to have facial features resembling people from Africa. There is little to no solid evidence of ancient African societies stepping foot in the Americas so long ago. In fact, certain features that the statues possess, such as helmets that look like the ones the Olmecs wore for battle and while playing a ball game that was popular in Mesoamerica, conflict with the idea that the monuments have anything to do with cultures from outside the continent. Numerous mysteries surround the colossal heads, including the original context in which they were used, due to experts discovering them in positions that did not necessarily reflect how the ancient Olmecs had situated them. They were definitely moved. One theory suggests that they were routinely moved around for ritualistic purposes, while another posits the possibility that the statues were intended as an assertion of dominance among the region's powerful rulers, and therefore a warning to outsiders. Most of the stone heads were ritualistically buried around 900 BC, and many bear signs of vandalism, further complicating archaeologists' ability to decipher their original meanings and uses. James Ossuary. In 1976, an antiquities collector named Oded Golan acquired a bone box known as the James Ossuary, which bears an Aramaic inscription that translates to James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus. To some scholars, the cryptic carving suggests that the ossuary once contained the bones of Jesus of Nazareth's brother. The chalk bone box is one of several that have been excavated, which date back to a 90-year period between 20 BC to 70 AD. During this time, it was customary of Jewish burials for a deceased person's bones to be placed in a bone box, or ossuary, which was then placed into a spot in the family tomb. Scientists from the Geological Survey Group determined that the box was around 2,000 years old, but the Israel Antiquities Authority refutes the claim, insisting that the artifact is much older. It's also possible that the ossuary belongs to the remains of someone unrelated to Jesus, considering the popularity of the names James, Joseph, and Jesus at the time. Golan, the box's owner, claims that the James ossuary came from Jerusalem and that he purchased the artifact from an area-based dealer during the 70s, but his authenticity was called into question in December of 2004, when Golan was charged with 44 counts of forgery, fraud, and deception, including charges related to the James ossuary, which accused its inscription of being forged. Golan was convicted of illegal antiquities trading, but was acquitted of the forgery charge. This does not certify the bone box as genuine, however. It means there is a lack of concrete evidence in regards to its origins. Spanish Hill. Located in the borough of South Waverly in Pennsylvania, Spanish Hill is a large glacial mound shaped like a sugar loaf that rises approximately 230 feet above the nearby Chemung River floodplain and 978 feet above sea level, occupying a surface area of around 10 acres. The unusually shaped hill is noticeably separated from the region's hill ranges. Locals once enjoyed climbing the steep hill, which now bears a no trespassing sign. At one time, the mound contained bizarre earthen walls measuring 7 to 8 feet high with an interior ditch, which were plowed over by a farmer in 1870. Witness accounts of the strange structures were recorded as early as 1795, when a French traveler provided the first known description of Spanish Hill. Later observations depicted the entrenchments with large trees growing in them, indicating that they had been there for a long time. The origins of Spanish Hill are disputed among scholars, some of whom allege that the site was built by the same culture that constructed similar structures, which were used for ceremonial purposes in Fort Ancient, Ohio. But other researchers point out that this theory conflicts with the area's archaeological past, and Fort Ancient is rather far away from Spanish Hill, making it difficult to believe that the same society built both sites. Additionally, physical evidence of the structures that allegedly once stood at Spanish Hill is lacking, causing some experts to wonder if the constructions ever even truly existed, even in the face of eyewitness accounts. Cyrus Cylinder. In 1879, an Assyro-British archaeologist named Hormuzd Rassam discovered the Cyrus Cylinder, a clay cylinder dating back to the 6th century BC among Babylonian ruins in Mesopotamia, or modern-day Iran. The artifact bears an inscription involving the name of the Achaemenid king Cyrus the Great in Akkadian cuneiform script. Researchers generally agree that Cyrus the Great ordered the cylinder's creation in 539 BC as he brought Babylonian civilization to an end, but they dispute the inscription's exact meaning. The first 18 lines of the text are written in the third person and describe Cyrus's alleged good deeds while describing his opponent, Nabonidus, the last king of Babylon, as oppressive and cruel. The second section is written in the first person from Cyrus's point of view and tells how he restored banished cults to the region after the fall of Nabonidus. Some scholars interpret the text as confirmation of biblical events, and many agree that the events detailed in it actually happened, regardless of any biblical connotations or lack thereof. but the prevailing consensus is that the message is ancient propaganda praising Cyrus and insulting Nabonidus. Subscribers to this theory believe that the descriptions demonize Nabonidus in an exaggerated way while excessively praising and glorifying Cyrus. The cylinder has also been revered as the first human rights charter, with such claims first arising in 1971 at the hands of Persian monarch Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, who sought to legitimize his government in a pre-Islamic context. While Cyrus demonstrated an unusual tolerance for the time in certain ways, some scholars argue that this particular translation of the cylinder neglects to accurately address the king's motive for these policies, which were largely based on a desire to recruit people into his newly established empire, rather than rooted in a desire to broaden human rights. The meaning of this cylinder depends on the way that you interpret it. Many people don't care what the reasons behind it were, but the actual message, giving the people basic human rights such as freedom of religion, practically unheard of in ancient times. Handless body. Several months after archaeologists excavated the medieval porpoise burial I told you about, the discovery of a human being's handless remains at Guernsey deepened an already existing mystery. The body dates back to around 500 years ago and is believed to belong to a monk or someone who was drowned. A toe bone belonging to the remains in question was found in a cliff edge, roughly 33 feet from where the porpoise was discovered. The toe bone led archaeologists to a near-complete set of human remains, which Philip de Jersey, the same expert who led the crew that excavated the porpoise, believes the body could belong to a monk. His theory makes sense considering Guernsey was once a religious refuge for monks in search of solitude. The 5-foot-tall man was laid east to west, indicating that he was given a Christian burial, and his skull was severely damaged, but the most confusing aspect of the situation was the gentleman's missing hands. There are medical reasons a person could lose their hands, such as leprosy, but the toes are in such good condition it seems unlikely, de Jersey told The Guardian. He offered an alternative theory that the body had become buried over time, courtesy of the elements, explaining it may be that it was a body that had been floating around and the hands had been nibbled. The discovery of the handless body posed more questions than answers, especially amid the ongoing uncertainty regarding the buried porpoise. Skull 5. A 1.8 million-year-old skull that was discovered at the Dmanisi archaeological site in Georgia during the early 2000s qualifies as the most complete jaw and cranium from one of early human history's significant turning points. A study led by Georgian National Museum anthropologist David Lord Kipanidze and published in the journal Science described the skull, known as Skull 5, which bears a mixture of features from numerous early and later human species. For this reason, it's considered a Mosaic skull, with its face, large teeth, and small brain more closely resembling earlier hominids. At the same time, the skull's detailed brain case falls more in line with the anatomy of Homo erectus, a later early human species. This combination of features has experts in a state of flux over whether the skull belonged to an early form of Homo erectus, a separate species called Homo georgicus, or something else entirely which remains unidentified. 4 other skulls have been found at the Dmanisi site, all dating back to a several thousand-year period around 1.75 million years ago. Following an extensive analysis, the study concluded that all 5 of the skulls likely represent variations of a single species, to a similar extent as the minor differences that exist among modern humans. The more researchers learn about this strange batch of skulls, the more questions they face about the human family tree, including sorting out the earliest migrations out of Africa and subsequent movement patterns. Calico Early Man Site. As things currently stand, the earliest reliable scientific evidence of humans in North America dates back roughly 15,000 years. But the questions of who got here first and when have been challenged numerous times amid discoveries of evidence thought to be left behind by suspected earlier arrivals. One such example can be found at the Calico Early Man Site in the central Mojave Desert outside Barstow, California. Located at a Pleistocene-era lake, the site allegedly contained the remnants of stone tools dating back over 30,000 years, which amateur archaeologists claimed to discover back in 1942. Among the site's excavators was Louis Leakey, an archaeologist who discovered the oldest known hominid fossils in East Africa. Later in his career, Leakey made it his personal mission to catalog the artifacts from the Calico Early Man Site in an attempt to lend credibility to the theory that these objects are man-made. If this is true, the site has the potential to upend everything we know about North America's first arrivals. But many experts are quick to dismiss the notion that the artifacts at the Calico early man site are genuine, and some have even gone as far as accusing Leakey of trying to revive his waning career with his insistence that the artifacts are man-made. Are the so-called tools actually pieces of rock and gravel that are being misinterpreted? Some researchers seem to think so, but there are others who believe otherwise. Giant Isopod. These giant crustaceans look a little bit like aliens if you look at them straight in the face. These enormous things look like giant bugs but are related to shrimp and crabs. They are also related to the pill bug, which is why they look like enormous roly-polies. They'll also roll up into a ball if they feel threatened. There are nearly 20 species of giant isopods which hail from the genus Bathynomus and are both the largest member of the isopod family and one of the largest known crustaceans in the world. Bathynomus giganteus is widely considered the world's largest isopod, but it is true that there are other, lesser-known species lurking in the depths of the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans that may rival its size. Discovered in 1879, these relatively unknown 14-legged creatures remain largely a mystery to scientists. Researchers do know that giant isopods typically reach up to 14.2 inches from head to tail, with the largest confirmed specimen measuring 2.5 feet long. Their size is caused by a condition known as deep-sea gigantism. Dwelling at depths of 1,640 feet or more, these creatures have reached sizes uncharacteristic of their shallow water relatives. The phenomenon of deep-sea gigantism, also called abyssal gigantism, is even less understood than the creatures who are known for having it, due to the costliness and difficulty of exploring their deep-sea habitats. Scientists believe numerous factors may contribute to this condition, including cold temperature, food scarcity, and having fewer predators. They are carnivores and scavengers, making quick work of any whale carcasses that sink down into the waters below. They aren't picky and will eat until they are stuffed to the brim. They have no idea when their next meal will be, and they can go a few years without eating. Humpback whales. Humpback whales can be found in all of the world's oceans, and they have one of the longest migration distances of all living creatures, with some traveling as far as 3,107 miles from tropical breeding areas to cooler feeding regions. These 40-ton creatures can remain underwater for as long as a half hour at a time, diving to depths of up to 656 feet on average. In addition to their vast migrations, humpback whales are also known for their magical singing and the long distances that these songs travel. Scientists are currently trying to understand the meaning behind the complex, hours-long series of moans, howls, cries, and other noises that these animals create. Their prevailing theory is that humpback whales vocalize to communicate with one another and seek mates. At one point, humpback whales came dangerously close to disappearing off the face of the planet, with some populations reduced as much as 95%. A moratorium on commercial whaling that went into effect in 1985 has helped to restore the species, but humpback whales remain threatened primarily by human activities, such as vessel strikes, entanglement in fishing gear, harassment, underwater noise, and effects on their habitat. The Japanese spider crab. One of the largest known arthropods, the Japanese spider crab is a marine crab species that lives in the Pacific waters near Japan, primarily off the south coast of the island of Honshu. It has the largest leg span of any arthropod, measuring up to 12.1 feet from claw to claw. The creature's body reaches as much as 16 inches wide, and the crab itself can weigh 42 pounds. Japanese spider crabs inhabit vents and holes on the ocean floor at depths between 160 and 2,000 feet, typically traveling toward the shallower end of their range during breeding season. They are omnivores who sometimes act as scavengers by eating the dead bodies of other animals that sink from above. It's difficult for fishermen to catch Japanese spider crabs due to the depths at which they live, which you'd think would bode well for the creature's population numbers. But the species is considered a culinary delicacy in some parts of Asia, and however hard it may be to hunt for them, people somehow still make it happen, to the point of threatening Japanese spider crabs due to overfishing. Kuvirs beaked whale. Kuvirs beaked whales, also sometimes called goose-beaked whales, are the longest and deepest diving whales on record, and they have the most extensive range of all the beaked whale species. Despite being found in most oceans and seas worldwide and ranking among the most cited beaked whale species, these creatures are difficult to study due to their deep offshore distribution and how little time they spend at or near the surface. In 2014, scientists observed a Kuvirs beaked whale diving to 9,874 feet over the course of 2 hours and 17 minutes. These whales dive with maximum efficiency by exhaling nearly all the oxygen in their lungs first, making them less buoyant, better able to quickly descend, and less vulnerable to the crushing effects of increasing pressure as they travel further down. They have fully flexible rib cages, which further eases their journeys downward as they hunt for squid and deep-dwelling fish. Sperm whales also regularly dive to around 1,000 to 2,000 meters deep. Whales like this, stranded on beaches or caught by whalers, have scars in the shapes of circles. These enormous circular markings could only be made by one thing: giant squid that attack the whales as they try to stop from being eaten. Kuvirs beaked whales live for up to 60 years, typically reaching between 15 and 23 feet long and weighing between 4,000 and 6,800 pounds. Like many other cetaceans, the species is threatened mainly by hunting, vessel strikes, entanglement in fishing gear, and underwater noise. Giant oarfish. Thought to be the inspiration behind the Loch Ness Monster and numerous other mythological sea monsters, the giant oarfish is the longest known bony fish species, reaching up to 56 feet long and weighing as much as 600 pounds. Researchers know little about this enigmatic and rarely seen species, which is thought to dwell at depths of around 3,300 feet, according to National Geographic. More often than not, humans have observed dead specimens as opposed to living ones due to the tendency for fishermen to occasionally capture giant oarfish as bycatch, as well as bizarre occurrences in which they wash up on shore. On these occasions, as well as incidents when giant oarfish appear near the water's surface, scientists believe strong currents and storms are to blame, and or that the fish is distressed or dying. However frightening and large they may appear, giant oarfish are, for the most part, harmless to humans. They lack real teeth and are equipped with weaker structures called gill rakers, and they feed primarily on plankton, making them a general non-threat to us. That doesn't mean that they don't look terrifying, though. Sixgill Shark. Also called cow sharks, Sixgill sharks are the largest members of the hexanchoid order, which consists of the most primitive sharks on Earth. They grow up to 20 feet long, with some estimates putting their maximum length at 26 feet. There are 3 sixgill shark species which have the unique trait of having 6 gills instead of 5, like most other sharks. They are incredibly ancient, dating back to around 200 million years ago, long before the dinosaurs went extinct. These rarely spotted creatures spend most of their time in the lightless ocean depths between 700 and 3,200 feet below the water's surface. Within their habitat in the deep tropical and temperate latitudes, sixgill sharks boast the distinction of being the biggest, most dominant predators. Unlike many sharks, which are highly vulnerable to overfishing, the sixgill remains largely protected by default of its deep-sea habitat. Sixgill sharks are rare since they're not seen or caught very often, but they are thought to be abundant, and they are also strong enough to usually avoid being captured by fishing hooks and lines, marine scientist Chip Cotton explained to Mashable. Scientists struggle to study these species simply because of how deep they tend to live, and the associated difficulties that they believed would come with tagging one, including bringing a specimen up to the surface from its dark, high-pressure environment, attaching a GPS device, and setting the creature free without traumatizing it to the point of killing it in the process. One researcher, Florida State University shark scientist Dean Grubbs, captured and tagged 23 sixgills in 2005, only to discover that, contrary to long-held beliefs within the scientific community, 90% of the specimens survived the ordeal and returned to life as normal afterwards. So maybe this can be done more often in the future. Deepwater stingray. The deepwater stingray is the only member of the Plesiobatidae family. This species is typically found dwelling on the ocean floor in the Indo-Pacific region, including in the waters off South Africa, Mozambique, Australia, Japan, the Philippines, and the Hawaiian Islands, at depths between 144 and 2,230 feet. Specimens reach up to 8.9 feet long and 4.9 feet wide, weighing as much as 260 pounds. The creature's large size is thought to be an evolutionary adaptation, enabling them to feed and fend for themselves, leading to a longer lifespan than they could otherwise count on. This makes up for the deepwater stingray's tendency to bear very few young, having just one litter of between 2 and 4 offspring every year. However large, and despite having a venomous sting, they generally do not pose a threat to humans. These carnivorous deep dwellers feed primarily on small creatures within their mysterious habitat, including worms, cephalopods, small fish, lobsters, crabs, shrimp, and eels. Deepwater stingrays are most likely to use their venomous stings against predators, such as the great hammerhead shark, which is known for preying on the species. Colossal squid. Found in the deep sea surrounding Antarctica, the colossal squid is the world's largest known invertebrate and the biggest squid species in terms of mass, reaching a combined body and tentacle length of up to 46 feet long and weighing as much as 1,100 pounds. It also has the largest eyes of any animal on Earth. The largest cephalopod ever recorded was a female colossal squid who was captured by a New Zealand fishing boat in February 2007 in the Ross Sea off Antarctica. At the time, the creature was near death, prompting those who captured her to take her back to New Zealand for further study. The specimen was estimated to be 32.8 feet long with a confirmed weight of 1,091 pounds. First described by British zoologist Guy Coburn-Robson in 1925, colossal squids are scarcely understood due to the difficulty of accessing their habitat roughly 7,200 feet beneath the water's surface. Scientists know that colossal squids use bioluminescence, or the ability to generate their own light to attract prey. They also believe that these creatures are slow-moving ambush predators who use their eyes to detect rather than actively hunt prey, and that colossal squids are frequently preyed upon by sperm whales. Colossal squids need very little food to survive, around 1.1 ounces or 30 grams of prey daily, despite their large size. Giant tubeworms. Giant tubeworms are a species of marine invertebrate found near hydrothermal vents on the Pacific Ocean floor, where they're capable of tolerating extremely high levels of hydrogen sulfide. Their tubular bodies measure up to 1.6 inches in diameter, reaching lengths of up to 9.8 feet. Like some other creatures that I told you about, giant tubeworms are known for a condition called deep-sea gigantism, making them much larger than their shallow water counterparts. The species was unexpectedly discovered during a 1977 expedition to the Galapagos Rift led by geologist Jack Corliss. There were no biologists on board, as the team had only planned to study the hydrothermal vents among which giant tubeworms live. This constitutes just one of several species the team found during their expedition. Giant tubeworms are oddly resilient, thriving in chemical-rich, near-boiling waters in the complete absence of light at depths of over 5,000 feet. Instead of relying on sunlight for energy, since doing so is obviously not an option, they feed on bacteria that derive energy from the chemicals in the water through a process called chemosynthesis. With no mouth or digestive tract, giant tubeworms receive nutrition directly from bacteria living inside their bodies, which convert the chemicals emitted from the hydrothermal vents into food. In addition to their unique feeding strategy, giant tubeworms are equipped with a bright red plume, which is a specialized organ that they use for exchanging oxygen, carbon dioxide, hydrogen, and other compounds with seawater. The organ's vibrant red shade results from a high presence of hemoglobin or blood. Without eyesight, giant tubeworms rely solely on their ability to detect movement and vibrations. When threatened, they retreat into their protective tubes. The fragile vent ecosystems that these creatures live in are also home to shrimp and crab communities, which scientists believe feed off the giant tubeworms' red plumes. These habitats are threatened by an unusual factor that, unlike most others on this list, is unrelated to human activity: shifts in the Earth's crust due to geothermal activity, which could cut off the supply of chemicals emitted from the vents. Scientists have already learned that when this happens, the entire ecosystem dies. The prickly shark. The prickly shark is one of two species hailing from the Echinorynidae family. While it's not unheard of to spot one in the shallow waters of the Pacific, such as Monterey Bay off California, the prickly shark typically prefers the cooler waters that are found at depths between 330 and 2,130 feet. Its nocturnal lifestyle means it spends most of the day resting in deeper offshore waters and migrating to shallower areas at night, adding to the creature's elusive nature. Prickly sharks are so named for the numerous thorn-like dermal tentacles covering parts of their dark, stocky bodies. They grow up to 13.1 feet long and travel throughout their habitat at a slow pace, likely using suction to capture their prey, which consists of bony and cartilaginous fish, as well as cephalopods. While the species has little to no market value, it is potentially threatened by expanding commercial deep-water fisheries. The International Union for Conservation of Nature, the IUCN, currently categorizes the prickly shark as data deficient, meaning not enough is known about its numbers to accurately assess its conservation status. Prickly sharks do not pose a threat to humans, with most specimens either tolerating human interaction or fleeing upon sight. Mahendra Parvata. For hundreds of years, one of the Khmer Empire's first capitals was lost beneath the dense Cambodian jungle. Artifacts suspected to originate from the city turned up every now and again for over 150 years, but it wasn't until 2018 that the location of the city was finally confirmed. Slowly but surely, archaeologists uncovered 600 newly discovered remnants, including shrines, a palace, and a pyramid. The city can be found in the Phnom Kulen mountain range and was confirmed in a 2018 study published in the journal Antiquity. An international research team spent 5 years piecing together the evidence with help from 3D technology and concluded that this was Mahendra Parvata. Before this, the location received strikingly little attention, according to the researchers, who discovered that the distinctly urban city was arranged in a giant grid, making it one of the era's first engineered landscapes. It seems to have been the testing ground for future cities, with a network of roads and city blocks about a mile long and a mile wide each. There was also evidence of advanced water management systems. It is almost entirely missing from archaeological maps, except as a scatter of points denoting the remains of some brick temples, the team wrote. The Khmer Empire controlled vast parts of Southeast Asia between the 9th and 15th centuries. Mahendra Parvata served as capital during the 8th and 9th centuries, but its power may have been short-lived. Archaeologists suspect that within decades of rising to power, the operations at Mahendra Parvata were relocated to Angkor. The city was ultimately abandoned, and its wooden structures disintegrated and were lost to history, leaving experts to learn about the city primarily from ancient inscriptions, as well as the newly discovered artifacts that helped the study's researchers prove their claims. Another lost city found: Maya Palace. Early this year, the Mexican National Institute of Anthropology and History announced the discovery of a Maya stone palace dating back more than 1,000 years. Discovered in the jungle at the Coluba archaeological site in Mexico's northeast Yucatan Peninsula, it is located just 100 miles west of Cancun. The palace is part of a large complex surrounded by numerous other buildings, which archaeologists have spent years excavating and restoring. The forest cover has helped to preserve it for all of these years. The palace itself was likely enjoyed by the Maya elite, according to a statement from the researchers. Measuring 180 feet long, 50 feet wide, and 20 feet tall, it contained 6 rooms and a staircase, and was once part of a larger and grander complex with a large round oven, altar, and 2 residential rooms. It was inhabited from around 600 AD until 1050 AD, encompassing 2 overlapping Maya eras, and was an enclave of the Mayan city of Chichen Itza for at least part of this time. Archaeologists also found secondary burial sites at the palace. In other words, sites where bodies originally buried elsewhere were reinterred, and they hope that the remains offer some insight into the site's inhabitants. The discoveries at Coluba so far represent just the beginning of what archaeologists hope to find there. The Maya suffered a mysterious decline between 800 and 1000 AD, and perhaps Coluba can help provide us with more answers. Garden of Bomarzo. The Garden of Bomarzo, also called the Sacro Bosco, or the Sacred Grove, and the Park of the Monsters, or Parco dei Mostri, is located in the province of Viterbo in Italy's Lazio region. Built 500 years ago during the late Renaissance, it is overgrown with trees. Duke of Bomarzo Pier Francesco Orsini, a 16th century patron of the arts and condottiero, or captain in charge of a mercenary company, commissioned the Parco dei Mostri's construction in 1552, following a series of traumatic events. He fought in a brutal war, was captured in Germany, and became a prisoner of war for several years. His best friend was killed, he was held for ransom, and then after his release, his wife passed away. For a while, he was haunted by demons. He hired the respected architect Piero Ligorio to help him create a villa of wonders inspired by his grief. In the wooded valley beneath the castle of Orsini, the monumental complex features a series of bizarre sculptures, including a monstrous fish head, a giant ripping another giant in half, a war elephant, a tilted, disorienting house, and an enormous screaming head with a gaping mouth. Orsini left the original trees and shrubs alone and added these creepy, ghoulish things around them. When Orsini passed away, the Sacro Bosco was abandoned. The garden became neglected and overgrown, but was restored after Salvador Dalí created a short film about it during the 1950s. It remains a popular tourist attraction to this day. Visitors can enter the giant screaming mouth, known as the Mouth of Hell. The old place is definitely eerie and overgrown, but here you can also experience the dark beauty left behind by Orsini. Sigiriya. One of Sri Lanka's most popular tourist destinations is Sigiriya, an ancient rock fortress built during the 5th century. Cut into a massive rock column nearly 660 feet tall, it contains a series of passageways, as well as a set of enormous lion's paws carved into the base, features that are fitting for the name Sigiriya, which means Lion's Rock. Sinhalese king Kashyapa I commissioned the fortress, which served as the kingdom's capital until 495 AD, when Kashyapa was defeated and died. Kashyapa's palace was built atop the Colossal Rock and was decorated with large, colorful frescoes, possibly depicting apsaras, or celestial singers and dancers. There was also a mirror wall, which was so well polished during the palace's heyday that someone could easily see their reflection in it in 495 AD. The site contains elaborate water-retaining technology, and some of these systems still work today. Some of the world's oldest known landscaped gardens can be found here as well. The palace served as a Buddhist monastery during the 14th century, but it was once again abandoned, and the forest eventually consumed the formation, preserving knowledge of it strictly among locals and Buddhist texts. British historians rediscovered the site during the 19th century, after Britain seized control of Sri Lanka, then called Ceylon. Today, it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Lost Mountain Temple. Stone constructions estimated to be over 1,000 years old were discovered in late 2019 in Nakhon Si Thammarat, a municipality in southern Thailand. Historian Pham Jiradejwong and his team, called the Explorers of the City of Mountains, made the alleged find, which he believes represent the ruins of an ancient city that was first mentioned over a millennium ago by a Chinese explorer. The site's architecture resembles other nearby ruins, which are thought to date back to the 6th century BC. Included among the structures are several stone walls and heaps of rocks, as well as at least one phallus-shaped rock. Pham and his team were originally tipped off about the site in 2017, but did not find it until 2 years later, with the help of experts. Thai authorities were notified of the discovery and tasked with authenticating it as a genuine archaeological site. As of now, only a small portion of the ruins have been excavated, and their origin remains unknown. A secret German village. La Cumbrecita, a Swiss-German village in the hills of Argentina, looks strikingly out of place with its German street signs, giant cuckoo clock that greets entering visitors, and restaurants that sell traditional German cuisine. The town's roots date back to 1932, when a German migrant couple living in Buenos Aires, named the Kabjolskis, began seeking an ideal location for their vacation home. Missing the mountains of their hometown region, they settled for the valley of Calamuchita, which at the time had no roads or vegetation. One thing it did have was a waterfall, which was good enough for the couple. They purchased the large property, began building, and planted lots of trees, including spruces and pines, which are unusual for the region. The couple, whose goal was to make the landscape as Bavarian-esque as possible, leased plots out to others who agreed to construct their homes in a Swiss-German architectural style. Around 1,500 people live in La Cumbrecita today, where the Kabjolski family continues to run the local bar and documents their history as conspicuously as possible. It was very hard for them to build this because I really mean it when I say there was nothing here, Ingrid Kabjolski told The Telegraph in 2017. Roughly 300,000 tourists visit La Cumbrecita annually, stopping to get a taste of its German, Swiss, Hungarian, and Austrian influences. This secret German village hidden by trees looks like a great place to visit once we can all travel again. Mayan megacity. In early 2018, scientists discovered tens of thousands of Maya buildings and structures, including houses, defense works, pyramids, agricultural fields, and irrigation systems in the thick Guatemalan jungle. Based on the new findings, they estimate that up to 10 million people once lived throughout the region, known as the Maya lowlands. The new estimate suggests that somewhere between 2 and 3 times as many people lived here than originally thought, according to Tulane University anthropology professor Marcelo A. Canuto. Scientists made the discoveries using LiDAR, light detection and ranging technology, which detects the presence of hidden structures beneath dense foliage. Altogether, the mapping picked up on around 60,000 structures over an 810 square mile area, including 4 major ceremonial centers containing pyramids and plazas. Evidence also shows that the land was heavily cultivated in order to feed the Maya Empire's burgeoning population. Their agriculture is much more intensive and therefore sustainable than we thought, and they were cultivating every inch of the land, research assistant Francisco Estrada Belli told CBC. Maintaining the vast farmlands required a massive and highly organized workforce, further indicating that the society was more advanced than it was originally given credit for. The availability of cutting-edge technology is much more efficient than guessing where some ruins may be located and cutting through the dense jungle to reach the suspected site, undoubtedly leading to many archaeological discoveries in recent years. The Lost City of the Monkey God. An early 2015 research expedition to Honduras led to the discovery of a lost city belonging to a mysterious, previously unknown culture. Long-standing rumors of a so-called White City, also called the City of the Monkey God, and aerial mapping images led the archaeologists into the remote, uninhabited region in the Mosquitia rainforest, where they found extensive plazas, mounds, earthworks, and an earthen pyramid. The scientists also uncovered a collection of stone sculptures that had not been touched since the city was abandoned. The once thriving civilization that built these structures around 1,000 years ago mysteriously vanished, and next to nothing is known about the society or what ended it. Archaeologists don't even know its name. The discovery of the well-preserved and unlooted settlements and artifacts is exceptionally rare, Mesoamerican archaeologist Christopher Fisher told National Geographic. He explained that the cache of stone sculptures, left undisturbed at the pyramid's base, may have been used as an offering. They were discovered with the tops of some of the items peeking out from the earth, and many more were found buried. The collection consisted of ceremonial seats and decorated vessels featuring snakes, vultures, and zoomorphic figures, including a were-jaguar. According to indigenous legend, the White City served as a refuge for native people fleeing from Spanish conquistadors, and those who went there never returned. Numerous explorations attempted to find the city's ruins starting in the 1920s, but the first reliable evidence of its location turned up in 2012, after an aerial survey was conducted using LiDAR technology. The only known person to have supposedly found the site before then had committed suicide, taking knowledge of its whereabouts to the grave. To protect the ruins, archaeologists did not disclose its exact location, but the White City may not remain a well-kept secret for long, thanks to deforestation, which threatens to expose it through the destruction of the rainforest. Nazi hideout. In March 2015, the Argentine press reported that archaeologists from the University of Buenos Aires discovered the suspected remains of a World War II-era Nazi hideout that was perhaps built as a last-ditch refuge for German officials as the war came to an end. Located in northern Argentina near the border with Paraguay and the remote jungle of the Teyucuare National Park, the site has long been suspected of having previously served as a Nazi sanctuary. During the 2015 digs, archaeologists found 5 German coins that were minted between 1938 and 1941, as well as a porcelain fragment that was manufactured in Germany. Apparently, halfway through the Second World War, the Nazis had a secret project to build shelters for top leaders in the event of defeat, inaccessible sites in the middle of deserts, in the mountains, on a cliff, or in the middle of the jungle like this, team leader Daniel Skavaldson told The Guardian. The hideout turned out to be unnecessary when thousands of Nazis began relocating to Argentina and received then-President Juan Perón's blessing until 1955. As a result of this welcoming policy, Nazi head honchos like Adolf Eichmann and Joseph Mengele, along with around 5,000 Nazis total, lived relatively freely and openly in Argentina. With 10-foot thick walls and a watchtower, the hideout indicates that the Nazis planned to flee to Argentina before they knew they had sympathizers there. Some scholars reject the idea that a Nazi hideout exists in the thick, remote Argentine jungle. The location has a German history, suggesting that it may have been easy to drop German coins in and around the site to bolster legends of the Nazis' alleged plan. But it was a reality for Nazis to flee to Argentina, and this has been proven beyond reasonable doubt, leaving many parts of the country open to further investigation in terms of their past inhabitants. El Mirador. El Mirador, a lost Maya city that once served as the civilization's flourishing capital, was discovered in 1926 in the subtropical rainforest of Guatemala. Its ruins are located within the 2,475 square mile Mirador Basin and were built over 2,000 years ago. At its height, the city was home to tens of thousands of residents and contained plazas and grand buildings. Thought to be the cradle of Maya civilization, it's located just 40 miles from Tikal, another major Maya site that served as the civilization's largest city during its classic period. Both cities are open to tourists, but getting there isn't easy. Most visitors reach El Mirador and Tikal via a several-day donkey ride, camping along the way, although the sites are also accessible by helicopter. Would you want to visit here, or have you? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to go there. The Green Rock at Hatusa. In Sorum, a seemingly unexciting town in modern-day Turkey, are the ruins of Hatusa, the imperial capital of the mysterious Hittite civilization. They suddenly disintegrated around 1180 BC, after centuries of wielding power over a swath of land stretching from Syria to the Dardanelles in northwestern Turkey. The Hittites left behind palaces, temples, and other artifacts testifying to the empire's former glory, but many of these structures are in ruins, and researchers admittedly know very little about the society. Much of what scholars know about the Hittites was gleaned from the ruins at Hatusa, which consist of a royal palace, 31 temples, numerous gates, and dozens of hidden tunnels and passageways. As impressive as the city's architecture is, many tourists are lured to the site by a large, shiny green rock, which sits at the Great Temple in the lower portion of the once thriving metropolis. It's likely made from serpentinite, or nephrite, or jade, which are not uncommon throughout the region, but it's not the material that stumps the experts. It's the fact that the rock has remained in one piece for so long and appears much different from others nearby. Archaeologists have yet to identify the stone's origins, purpose, and history, as well as how it was transported to the site. Locals, on the other hand, call it the wishing stone. Efforts to solve the centuries-long mystery are ongoing. Serpentine mask offering. In late 2011, archaeologists from Mexico's National Anthropology and History Institute discovered a treasure trove of artifacts at the base of the Teotihuacan's Pyramid of the Sun, roughly 30 miles northeast of Mexico City. Thought to be ceremonial offerings from a consecration ritual performed before construction on the pyramid began 1,900 years ago, the collection included obsidian, pottery, and bone pieces, as well as a green serpentine mask made from stone. The ruins at Teotihuacan, which boast some of the largest pre-Columbian pyramids in the Americas, rank among the most famous Mesoamerican archaeological sites, but much remains unknown about the mysterious, unidentified civilization who built the ancient city, which the society abandoned centuries before the Aztecs discovered it around 1300. Researchers are still trying to definitively determine what the Pyramid of the Sun was even used for, with some speculating that it was a royal tomb, while others believe that it served as a portal to the underworld. The treasure trove that yielded the serpentine mask was discovered under a pile of rubble at the pyramid's center. Due to its shockingly lifelike qualities, archaeologists believe that the mask may be a portrait. Experts hope to learn more about the people of Teotihuacan as they further explore its pyramids. Underwater burial. In early 2011, archaeologists got quite the surprise when they uncovered the remains of numerous Mesolithic people underwater dating back 8,000 years. A team of researchers from Stockholm University and the Cultural Heritage Foundation discovered this underwater grave site in what is now southern Sweden, near an archaeological site called Jordan. They had been searching the site for several years, but all they had found were animal bones, until this. Their findings, which were published in 2018 in the journal Antiquity, explained that all the remains were skulls, minus one infant. At least 2 skulls bore evidence of a stake or a pole having been driven through them at the base at one time, and all the adult skulls were missing their jaw bones. Even more strangely, the 11 adult skulls all contained signs of trauma, particularly of being struck in the head multiple times, with men being hit on the top or the front of the head and women sustaining injuries from behind. With only skulls to work with, it was impossible for experts to determine what caused the individual's deaths, but the injuries in this case did not seem life-threatening. Strangely enough, people during the Mesolithic era were hunter-gatherers and were not known for being violent. In fact, the civilization was not known for engaging in any gruesome burial customs whatsoever. They stuck to simple and respectful forms of parting with the deceased. Skulls on posts were not what they were expecting to find. So what were these people doing here, and who were they? 8,000 years ago, this burial site would have been at the bottom of a shallow lake covered with tightly packed stones. The guess is that these hunter-gatherers drove stakes through skulls as a way of scaring off enemies, rather than as a burial ritual. Virtually everything about the burial and its bizarre circumstances remains a mystery. It is possible these people were transported here, but the watery location of the remains was also odd for the ancient society who had laid the individuals to rest, or something. They probably didn't get that much rest. African ghost tribe. Back in the Stone Age, 4 children were buried before their time. However, these children have revealed many secrets about the people who lived in Cameroon, Africa thousands of years ago. In a study published in January in the online journal Nature, researchers described finding 18 human burials and countless artifacts at the Shumlaka rock shelter in the grasslands of modern-day Cameroon. With its use dating back at least 30,000 years, Shumlaka is one of the earliest known settlements in what's believed to be the homeland of today's Bantu-speaking tribes. Yet a DNA analysis of the remains of 4 children found at the site showed that its early inhabitants are not related to modern Bantu-speaking cultures. The children lived during the Stone Age, with one pair consisting of a 4-year-old and a 15-year-old boy who died around 8,000 years ago. 2 other children, a 4-year-old girl and an 8-year-old boy, were buried around 3,000 years ago. The 4 children were distant cousins, despite each pair living thousands of years apart from the other. 1/3 of their DNA is more closely related to ancestors of hunter-gatherer tribes who live in the rainforests of western Central Africa, over 310 miles away. Like their predecessors, these so-called pygmy tribes, such as the Baka and Aka, are not closely related to the Bantu-speaking peoples who currently live near Shumlaka. The other 2/3 of the children's DNA links them to a ghost tribe of Africa, or in the words of population geneticist and senior study researcher David Reich, a long-lost ghost population of modern humans that we didn't know about before. These findings challenge the previously held idea that Bantu-speaking tribes originated in and around Shumlaka. While it's possible that multiple groups used the site, including possibly some Bantu ancestors, the children's genetic material shows that researchers have a long way to go when it comes to untangling the web of our ancient lineages. Strange stone sculptures. Researchers spent decades debating over the origins of a series of strange stone statues known as the Lazario Collection, or the Library of Aguebana. Discovered by a monk named José María Nazario in Puerto Rico during the 19th century, the figurines vary in shape and size, with some resembling humans, and many are marked with symbols that have never been observed in other ancient art. Perplexed scientists theorize that the markings may constitute an unknown writing system of a pre-Columbian civilization. Meanwhile, others took the bizarre nature of the sculptures as evidence that they were possibly created by members of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. Many speculated that the artifacts were a hoax, based on Nazario's seemingly fantastical story about how he found the figurines at the direction of a dying elderly woman, who supposedly summoned him to her hut in the mountains and told him where to look for them. With no known similar artifacts to compare them to, proving or disproving the statue's authenticity was especially complicated. Eventually, researchers more or less gave up trying. The mission was revived in 2001 amid renewed interest among scholars, and last year, experts performed a microscopic examination of the sculptures at a laboratory. Test results revealed that the collection was definitely carved sometime during the 1600s, proving that the statues are not forgeries, nor are they associated with the 10 lost tribes of Israel. But many unanswered questions remain, including who created the figurines and what their unidentified symbols mean. Any guesses? Let me know in the comments below. Skull helmets. A shocking study reported in 2019 that infants from 2,100 years ago were found with helmets made of children's skulls. Published in the journal Latin American Antiquity, researchers share that the ancient infant skulls were encased in skulls belonging to older children. They were found at an excavation site in Salango, Ecuador. The remains of approximately 11 people were unearthed at the site, along with numerous other artifacts dating back to roughly 2,000 years ago, a time when a society known as the Guangala lived there. This culture thrived from the year 100 AD to about 800 AD, but much of the traditions and practices of this tribe remains a mystery. 2 of the remains found were infants with the skulls of older children fitted snugly over their own, just like a helmet. Researchers do not know if the children were related or why these skulls were used as helmets for the infants. It is the only known instance of infant remains being fitted with skull helmets like this as part of a burial ceremony. They noted that many early South American cultures regarded the human head as a powerful symbol, pointing toward one possible explanation for the discovery. The Guangala are famous for their pottery that has realistic portrayals of human faces. Perhaps this burial practice or tradition was somehow related to a nearby active volcano volcano, or some sort of ritual to appease the gods. Amputation cave art. Numerous Paleolithic rock art sites throughout Europe feature images of hands that are missing fingers, leading researchers to try figuring out why. For a long time, prevailing theories argued that the images represented hand signals or a counting system, but in a 2018 paper published in the Journal of Paleolithic Archaeology, a trio of researchers suggested an alternative explanation, that the hands with missing fingers were painted by people who engaged in ritualistic amputation practices. In other words, people with missing fingers created these images. But why were so many people missing fingers? It certainly wasn't frostbite, since much of the artwork was found in regions where freezing temperatures are rare. The researchers examined Stone Age hand imprints from all over the world, as well as ethnographic information on the topic, and identified 121 societies that practiced as many as 10 distinct finger segment amputation rituals. Did you know this? I didn't. These civilizations existed throughout Africa, Asia, Oceania, and the Americas, and their amputation practices are a likely explanation for their artwork. But why did ancient societies remove fingers and finger segments? The reasons probably vary widely. For example, in some societies, people removed fingers while grieving lost loved ones. In another bizarre case, sometimes women cut off their child's finger, believing it provided them with good luck, and then the mother swallowed the finger. Fingers were also amputated as a criminal punishment in many societies. Despite the correlations between amputation in ancient societies and missing fingers in their cave art, there is no concrete proof that the practice of removing these appendages explains the images. But the findings represent an important step toward definitively explaining if and exactly how these two factors are related. Pazyryk carpet. Discovered in a royal Scythian burial mound at the Pazyryk burial mounds in Siberia in a remarkable state of preservation, the carpet is the world's oldest pile carpet. It's shocking to learn that the intricate design, which consists of 4 lotus buds, 24 cross-shaped figures, and depictions of men on horseback, dates back 2,500 years to the 5th century BC. The carpet's faded colors were once vibrant shades of yellow, blue, and red. Researchers were lucky to come across this fascinating artifact, as the tomb had been raided in the past, but the grave robbers left behind anything of little perceived value, including the carpet. Surprisingly, experts actually have the thieves to thank for its near-perfect preservation. As a result of their looting, water seeped into the mound, covering the carpet. The water froze, and the ice formed a protective layer over the object, enabling it to maintain its pristine state. Despite being discovered in Scythian burial mounds, experts are unsure of the carpet's origins. It may have come from Persia or Central Asia, or it may have been created by the nomadic Scythians who occupied the Pazyryk site, and who may have copied the design from an authentic Persian carpet. Stone complex of unknown origins. In a study published in late 2016, archaeologists reported the discovery of a massive 1,500-year-old stone complex of unknown origins along the eastern shore of the Caspian Sea in what is now Kazakhstan. Occupying a vast area totaling around 300 acres, the stone structures vary in size, with the smallest measuring 13 by 13 feet and the largest measuring 112 by 79 feet. Some of them vaguely resemble the boulders at Stonehenge. In the words of the archaeologists, the structures are made of stone slabs inserted vertically into the ground. There are carvings of weapons and creatures on some of the stones. Included among the ruins were the remains of an ancient saddle partially made from silver and featuring images of deer, wild boar, and other animals. Due to the region's struggling economy, excavations and research have been slow going, and archaeologists can only theorize regarding who built the complex and the artifacts within it. Designs on the saddle suggest that it was made during the Roman Empire's collapse, also a time when a group called the Huns were migrating across Europe and Asia. And while all signs point toward the Huns having possibly built the site, further exploration is required. Oldest rock art in North America. A 2013 study analyzing a series of petroglyphs at the now dried-up Winnemucca Lake in Nevada, roughly 35 miles northeast of Reno, determined that they constitute the oldest known rock art in North America. Published in the Journal of Archaeological Science, the report describes the shapes of the limestone carvings as lines, pits, crickets, swirls, diamonds, trees, flowers, and more, with each one measuring somewhere between 8 inches and 3 feet wide. The research team, led by geochemist Larry Benson, determined that the artwork is somewhere between 10,500 and 14,800 years old, making it the oldest known rock art in North America. What the experts were unable to determine was whether the petroglyphs were created over a short period of time or over several hundred years, and how they were made. Their symbolism and meaning are also unknown, and their creators are also a mystery, but it's believed that they may have been the first people to enter the New World. Thanks for watching! Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye!